It connects you to this essence of what it means to be alive, or the experience of living.
Does it even exist to have a bad trip, or is it more that you were in a challenging moment and you actually didn't really know how to deal with that? So
You can feel super confused after doing plant medicine. You're like, hey, everything that I thought was a certain way, I just got a different perspective, and now I don't know.
welcome to a new episode of Beyonder the podcast. I'm your host V, and I'm super excited about the conversation I'm going to have today. As you know, Beyonder the podcast is really about going beyond the ordinary and beyond borders, not just country borders, but also inner limitations. And I really love to combine stories about inner and outer journeys. And I think today, the conversation that we're going to have is really about that. My guest today, she loves to travel just like me. And she just arrived in Australia a couple of days ago. And now she's in Sydney with me. And I was so excited to have this conversation because we have been talking already for hours. And every time I was like, I need to press record because this is a great conversation. So today I really want to dive into how travel can be transformational in a way already. But when you combine it with inner journeys, it can really be an even bigger experience. And often when I talk about inner journeys, you might think about, for example, meditation or just journaling about your thoughts. But today we're going to really take it to another level. And we're really going to talk about experiences that just really expand your horizons and open up your perspective to something new. So without further ado, welcome Felicia.
Thank you.
She's a holistic health therapist. And yeah, maybe you would just like to share what brought you to Australia. Like, you love to travel, why did you even decide to go on this adventure?
I think because this is one of the few times I think where the intention was really to combine both traveling outwards into the world to new places, but also I felt a real focus on what was going on inside of me, new chapters and everything. And I felt it was good for me to have a little bit of time out of my daily life and expanding horizons, having a different environment and having some quality time with myself, which I tend to do a lot when I'm traveling, because you have a lot of moments for yourself.
Yeah.
And you're really back to feeling what way to move instead of being bind to your daily activities or things that are in your calendar, appointments, visiting friends. And it just really opens up your daily structure to go travel to a new country and to go out of the comfort zone. And I've noticed that it's been quite a few years since I've done like long travel for more than 2 months. And right now, I don't know when I will be traveling back home either. So it all feels very open. And I felt it was time to have that kind of openness again for the phase that I'm in. And yeah, seeing if new things can come in or things that are already happening right now get more ground. So it was really the intention of expanding horizons. And what better way to get a new perspective on things than visiting the other side of the world? So that's what brought me here. And I really love that my first stop is visiting friends, people that I know, and getting to know you guys better and have amazing conversations.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I love what you said about just going on this adventure and not even knowing where to go, where you're going next, and how long you will be in Australia, and maybe afterwards where you will go, and just to really be open to this adventure and to step into the unknown without sort of feeling like stressed out about it. Of course it can be scary, and I think that's also why I like to bring those type of stories to the podcast, to really show people what is possible if you just dare to take the first step, to really feel like, oh, this is something that is pulling me and I would love to do this. And yeah, fuck it, I'm just going to go for it,
Yes, and it's sort of embracing the inexplicable as well, because even being experienced in travel and traveling by myself and even traveling without a plan, I do feel that every time, again and again, you have to let go of a certain type of control or an illusion of safety that we sometimes find in structure or our daily activities. And even now, like arriving here, I had to take a breath. And, I have a lot of experiences already, but still, this is a new one. And you have to consciously say, okay, I'm going for it and I'm opening myself up. And it's getting comfortable or resting in not knowing, which is, I think, the way that sometimes our mind works.
Yeah.
You have to really pay attention, say, okay, I'm making the choice to be okay with not knowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you feel like with all the work you have been doing, like you have experience in meditation, in plant medicine journeys, like all types of really inner journeys and traveling inwards basically, and you can share more about that as well. Do you feel like those let's say tools that you use in your work also help you now while you're traveling, while you're on this journey of really stepping into the unknown, like to go for it and to feel like, okay, I'm okay even though I actually don't know what's going to happen or where I'm going tomorrow?
Yes, I feel like I'm very supported by the things that I have learned, especially in having this kind of openness and the state of not knowing what you're going to do tomorrow, where if I do feel that there are some nerves or some fears that are coming up, that for one, I am able to observe them and recognize them, that I am conscious that something is driving me, that there is a fear in my system pulling strings and creating some thoughts and sometimes even actions. And to be like, you train, especially in meditation as well, you train to be aware of what is going on inside. And that awareness just helps you to recognize it and be able to deal with it better, I would say, and to not let it lead you. So that if I feel like, oh, I'm a little bit all over the place, or I feel actually scared about something that I'm also excited about, I can tune in with myself and say, like, oh, it's probably because this is going on and this is pulling my attention and it's creating some dysregulation in my nervous system, right? Yeah. And that if sometimes, most of the time right now, I just embrace it and then I can come back to feeling peaceful.
Yeah.
Just by recognizing it, knowing that that's what it is, saying like, hey, is there something that I can learn from this? Because it's showing me something. For example, the need to control, or a sense of unsafety. And most of the time now, and that this wasn't the case before, but right now that when I see it and I invite it in, it becomes more neutral. And I just take it with everything else that I'm going through. And it just finds a place, and sometimes it just dissolves. And when I feel that it's really creating some kind of boundary between me and the experience that I'm having, that's when I would use a tool, for example, to do a breath work session for myself to ground, or to have a meditation with this specific fear or thought that's coming up, or a limiting belief that is showing itself. And I have ways to dissolve them or to transform them. And it really just immediately changes how I experience whatever situation I'm in, which is lovely. And I'm so grateful that I have those tools. Yeah. And sometimes I'm in admiration of people who don't. And I'm like, wow, how do you do this? Because it's quite a thing to go into a fearful state or anything. So I'm really grateful that I have them. And I think the result of it is that you can stay in a certain kind of joyfulness and a certain openness to the experience. Like it feels that even though I'm feeling butterflies in my stomach, and I do sometimes worry like, oh, how am I going to do the next thing, or how am I going to get there? When you're talking about travel, or where am I going to stay tomorrow? That I can take it easy with myself and trust really go back to just trusting that life is taking care of it and something will come. And it's a very nice way of going through it. And I think it has to do a lot with just embracing whatever is there, and going back to, okay, first I want to be at peace, and then we see what happens. And sometimes you ask for help.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Like first, finding your inner peace. It's so important. And I think especially with traveling, often we just focus more on the logistic, like where I'm going to stay, what am I going to do? And you're very much sort of outwards, literally, like focusing on the external. But I always say, wherever you go, you take yourself. And that's where the inner journey comes in, because what you said, if you can find this inner peace first and just feel calm, then you're not so worried about where you're going to stay next or what's going to happen, because you sort of feel like, okay, I know I will be fine, whatever is going to happen. And I think that takes so much stress away already.
Yes.
And it just makes the experience more beautiful anyway, because eventually you travel to, experience the beauty of life and nature, and to enjoy yourself. And then if you're just worried about logistical stuff, it just takes away the reason why you would travel in the first place.
Yes, I think it has to do a lot with presence, because the moment that you can fully be with whatever is happening and you're there, you get to hear the birds that you haven't heard before, right? Because you're in a new country, there's new birds, there's new wildlife, and you have enough space to let it in because you're not going into a survival mode. So you get all these sensations and all these impressions that you can really fully feel, and it makes you feel really alive. Where I think if you are caught up more in the mental stuff, I mean, still the world is a beautiful place, and I think it's always very joyful, or at least very impressionable. But the more presence we are, I think the more we can fully go with it, and you experience more also in your sensations.
Yeah.
Which is lovely.
Yeah,
right?
definitely. Yeah, and I think if we dive a little bit deeper into that, I would love to go into something that I feel like there's not enough knowledge about, or people don't talk about it enough. And just before we go in there, I just want to say what we share is really about our own reflections and personal experiences. So there's no, medical or legal advice in this, but I would really love to talk about, plant medicine journeys, because I know for you and for me personally, it has really had like a profound impact on our lives. And it's really a beautiful way to travel inwards. And I think maybe you're listening now and you're like, what the hell are plant medicine journeys? What are you talking about? So maybe we could start there, just really to start with the basics, like, okay, what is this? Where am I traveling to? What is happening? Just what is it, basically? Because I know you have a lot of experience with this and have been guiding people through those journeys. So I think it would be lovely to just, talk a little bit more about this.
Yes, absolutely. I can talk about this for hours, as you know. And I think it is good to point out that this is our perspective and it's our experience, and it might differ for people, which is also why I would love to talk about it, because then people can feel for themselves if they can relate, and if it makes them curious, or if they feel like, oh, I don't know what this is, but it's not for me, right?
Yeah.
Which is also great. But to talk about it and to make it available, to give some information so that people can, they can approach it if they feel like they want to. For me, plant medicine, and we go back to the earth, which is, I think, also the reason why we love to travel so much, is because we see the world, with everything that is happening in the world, the beautiful things, but also the challenging things and the heartbreaking things. It's so full of experience and different aspects of life and being human and being part of this sort of, amazing reality of life on planet Earth, I'd say. I don't know another way to sort of describe it. But if you have a certain appreciation for earth and for plants and nature. There's a lot of, for example, herbs in nature, a lot of plants that we can use. We eat vegetables. Everything is coming from the earth. And if you go into herbal medicine, you learn how different herbs can aid different processes in the body, right? For health purposes as well, medicinal purposes. And then you come to plant medicine, which is basically the elements in nature that are not just helping us on a physical level, but they're helping us in an emotional level, a mental level, an energetic level. You can even go into the metaphysical world, right? And which is actually, it's a lot easier to explain it from a metaphysical perspective than the physical perspective. But taking it step by step, I think it's good to look at the physical realm of it. And plant medicine are plants in nature that have a compound that when it connects to our body, receptors in the brain, and it takes us to a different place, a different state of consciousness. So we have our daily state of consciousness, which is hugely also shaped by our subconscious. So everything that we've learned in our lives, everything that we've experienced, everything that has been taught to us, sometimes, and this is not the specific work that I go into, but I do have colleagues that go into this, where we even obtain information when we're in the womb, right? Or when we get born. All of these things are going into our system and creating who we are and it creates the glasses that we look through when we experience the world. And what plant medicine does is gives you a way to connect to everything that is alive within you and everything outside of you, I would say.
Yeah.
This the most simple way to describe it. And it connects you to this essence of, I would say, what it means to be alive, or the experience of living, and also the outer journeys and the inner journeys that are sort of combined. And it connects you to this very pure aspect of yourself and of the world. And from an energetic perspective, like everything starts to become like one thing, like one sort of energy source that is creating all these different shapes in the world, including us as we are.
Yeah.
So it is a magical thing that is very hard to explain. But when you take plant medicine, and I do think that it makes a difference if you're guided in a good and safe way, where you're able to really surrender to the experience and be aware of the things that are happening. And it's easier to give them a place logically after you've done it. But still, however you do it, it gives a new perspective. The same way travel does. If you see another country, you realize, hey, there's other kinds of people living in a different way, having different rituals, and you get a different perspective on life. And with plant medicine, I think one of the main benefits that it has given me is to gain new perspectives. And that in itself is such a transforming experience, whether it's a perspective on me and how I'm wired and how I live my daily life, all the way up to how I see the very sort of act of living, or the very reality of life. And it just opens up so much, and it can be such an healing experience, because it does have the essence of healing in it, for me at least, where whenever you do it and however you do it, it gives you something to sort of work with. It gives you some insights. And I don't know exactly how this works, but guiding so many people through the years and having multiple journeys myself, and we'll talk about why we call it a journey, a trip, a ceremony, however you want to call it. It's so connected to your system. So whatever happens, like I would say 95% of the time, people really know why they had a certain experience with plant medicine, and they will give you the feedback like, it was exactly what I needed, or this came exactly at the right time. Like there is this intelligence, like this natural intelligence at work. And that for me is such a gift. And it really goes into the realm of magic for me, because the logical mind at some point can't explain it anymore. Even though, for example, what we talked about before is also that wherever you are in the world, there are plants that have these psychedelic compounds that can bring you to this state of consciousness. And so it's always available in different kinds of plants. Like we know the big ones, for example, ayahuasca, psilocybin, the cacti, San Pedro. But there's so many plants that have this quality that we don't know, but they are around wherever you are in the world. Like it's there for us to, like it's designed that way, which is, I think, why so many native tribes include this in their daily life, right? And rituals or rites of passage. They do it to pray, to heal, to connect to each other, to create community. And I think it's also why it's there. It serves a purpose.
Yeah, beautiful. And I think that's a beautiful explanation of something that is really hard to explain.
I really do my best.
No, I think that was great, because I feel like, it's sometimes so annoying when you share like, oh, you just have to experience it.
You do. You really, yeah.
Yeah, because then if you haven't experienced it and you listen to this and it's something maybe you hear about for the first time, you're like, okay, but I want to know more before I, decide if I even want to experience this, right? But it's also such a personal journey, or like however you want to call it, that it's not like in that sense explainable, because it does go beyond your logical mind. It does open up, your mind, or just your perspective in a way that is really hard to explain, because it's something that is just not tangible in that sense. So I think your explanation actually does.
It makes some sense, even though it doesn't make any sense.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that another way to describe it, because we call it a journey, and it is a way of traveling through your inner landscapes, I would say. And you could compare it perhaps to a kind of a dream state, but being more aware. And I think the same with dreaming is that you sometimes get very clear imagery. Sometimes you wake up in the morning with sort of a feeling or an emotion. Like it can be, I have woken up angry, for example. I'm like, why am I angry? But it's the same that is happening in the dream state, which is also a different state of consciousness than our waking state, that you go through your subconscious. The subconscious is processing a lot. And most of the time, and for most people, we process in imagery. So you can see symbols or you can talk to people, but it's still a dream, right? And it's you creating the dream. A part of you is creating this experience. And the same as in plant medicine, is something in you is creating this experience. And although most of the time, because we cannot speak generally about plant medicine, I feel, because even for the same person, if you do it multiple times, it will be different every time.
Yeah.
And it could be that there's some common things, like some people always go into very big imagery. Other people usually are more connecting to a voice that is talking within. But still, every journey is different. So it's really hard to say something about this in general. But in this sort of dream state, most of the time you are quite aware of what is happening. You won't remember everything after the ceremony, but the most important things, they stay with you. It is really an integrated experience. And this is what I love when you, for example, do more talk therapy, because plant medicine is definitely used for therapeutic purposes, which is also the work that I've been doing. 100% do it for fun, do it for curiosity, for the experience of it. You're alive, you might as well have this experience.
Yeah, if it pulls you, and
if it's calling you and you're curious. I love curiosity as a starting point for these kinds of experience, because it's a very open and receiving state. So if you're just curious, I would say yes. If you feel safe and you feel grounded, you have a nice way of doing it, yes. But especially for people who are having some kind of a challenge, whether it's a physical challenge like a sickness, or if it's, you're struggling mentally, it can really have that healing effect. And it's nice that during those journeys you receive information that afterwards you can implement. And if you just talk about the stories that are in your head, which I'm so appreciative of psychologists and talking therapy, and I think it serves a purpose. But this is going a little bit beyond, where as if you are in a dream or a certain experience, a reality, that it feels more integrated, like it feels more embodied, because you really live that other perspective. It's not just somebody suggesting like, hey, maybe you can look at it this way and it feels lighter. But in psychedelic ceremonies, it can really feel like, hey, I lived it, I felt it in my body, I felt it in my system. And you walk out having that reference, that direct reference to another perspective or a different way of looking at something or a new insight. And I think it helps you transform quicker and more sustainable sometimes than just going to the mental aspect.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of the most beautiful sort of qualities of doing plant medicine is that you feel it with you. And this is also why I love, if I'm guiding these journeys, to also help people in the integration of it, because it can be just an experience, fun or challenging or, mind opening, whatever it is. But if you spend some time integrating it, for example, writing or listening back to the music that was played during the journey, or anything that you can connect to it, it can bring back that experience and you can feel it again. And it's this reference point that helps you really make changes if you would like to in life. Like it feels substantial in that way, even though it is more intangible than I would say other therapies.
Yeah, but I do really, at least that's also my experience, that it's really also about integration, because you can have all types of insights while you're going through it, while you're in that state, let's say. But if you don't do anything with it afterwards, then yeah, you can still remember it, but it's eventually it's like, how do you implement it in your daily life? Like, are you actually taking those insights with you to make certain changes, or to really, yeah, what you said, embody how it felt? And of course that's with everything. That's also with coaching or with therapy, like talk therapy. You can have a session and then be like, oh, this was great, I feel empowered, or whatever it was. But then if afterwards you don't change anything in your life, you don't actually apply or implement the insights that you had, not so much is going to change, right? At least that's how it has felt for me. Like, experience itself can already shift things, of course.
Yes.
Definitely. But it's also like, okay, how are you then living your life afterwards?
Yes. And it's funny that you say that, because sometimes you don't need an integration. I've guided people that, facilitated for people, because I feel like the plant medicine is the one that guides.
Yeah.
And your own intuition. But I've guided people where there is instant healing happening. I call it healing. You can call it a change, a shift, whatever it is. But I think it's, generally speaking, more rare. Like sometimes, one example was a woman who didn't really experience a lot during the journey itself. So she was feeling somewhat disappointed. Like she felt like it was nice and I had some tingling sensations and some images. Like it was good, but you could tell that she was a little disappointed because her expectations were quite high.
Yeah.
And we just told her, the only thing that we can tell her based on the experiences that we've had personally, but also in working in this field, is trust that whatever happened for a reason, and take time to integrate the experience. Go back to your daily life and just have the intention to be aware if something is different. If you maybe relate to people differently or anything. And we got an email after maybe like a week of her saying, my knee injury is gone. She's like, I've been limping for years and I didn't even notice walking out of the retreat that it's gone. And for her, it's like, it wasn't even physically an injury anymore, but she just felt pain that was still there, and something was moved or healed or anything.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm walking straight. This is incredible. And she didn't even notice at the beginning. And I'm so grateful that participants take the time to give us the feedback, because it makes it easier for us to talk about things.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. And she's like, great. And I've seen this also with people, you know, in like a depressed state, and I mean, manageable. And she was in under guidance from a psychotherapist. But I saw a change in her the next day, where her face was open and at ease. Like there was a peace about her. And she's like, yes, I still hear a voice in my head talking to me, but I just choose to not listen to it. Like I just feel here and grounded. And it was such a like 180-degree difference where I was like, wow. And I mean, it's rare, but I just felt like she was like just ready for the rest of her life. She didn't really need to do anything. But most of the time we get insights, little hints, some information, some sensations, and it's just the start of a journey, which is what me and colleagues of mine, people in this field, say a lot, where you do a journey of a certain amount of hours, and then the real journey starts. Then you start to work with whatever information you got, and you take it step by step. And this is also why we say take a good amount of time if you want to do it again, because you can still be integrating that experience for months, sometimes years. We've had people doing a journey and afterwards saying, this is enough for the rest of my life. Like, I will integrate this the rest of my life. I'm done. I don't ever have to do this again. And other people come yearly, right? Every year they feel like, oh, I want to dive in and see if there's anything else that I can unpack, right? Instead of packing for a journey, we are unpacking.
Yeah, I mean,
from this
fits
journey.
my brand, unpack my video.
Exactly, we're still packing and unpacking.
We didn't rehearse this.
No. So it's great as well. And then the other part, which is more my personal experience, is for me, we always talk about integration after doing a ceremony. And for me, these plant medicine ceremonies have always been integration of my daily life, which I feel is it's a different way, like a different purpose that it brings me, where through my journey in Tibetan meditation, where you do a lot of discovering of the inner landscapes, how what is stored in your subconscious, what limiting beliefs you have. You go through so many things, and you also experience different states of consciousness that are very hard to explain. And my teachers in Tibetan meditation do give some context so that we can place it somewhere in our mind to be at ease with whatever it is that we're experiencing.
Yeah.
Right? The mind wants to
make some logic out of it.
It wants to make some sense. So they give us some, not saying that it's a truth, but it's their truth, and they share it with us so that we have some context for the practices that we do. And because usually the practice speaks for itself. So through meditation, I've gone through a lot of things and emotional journeys, release, and I've also experienced things that were very hard to place for me, like very hard to explain. And I got a little confused, like what does it really mean, or like what is true, what is not. And the first time I did a plant medicine journey, which is I always had a no. Every time that, I grew up in the Netherlands, and it's more available there. Psilocybin is legal, and a lot of people do it for fun. Even, growing up and friends, they were doing truffles, and I always said no. I never wanted to try it. I really felt very clear, like, no, even though the stories that I heard were amazing, I just was like, I don't feel it. And I'm very grateful that I was true to myself in that way. And other friends of mine, they still have amazing memories about these kinds of like fun experiences in the park. So, I mean, it's not bad at all, but it wasn't for me at the time. And then when a friend of mine who was already working in this, I would say, sort of a therapeutic field, He offered it to guide me. And for the first time, I felt like, yeah, I'm ready. I want to let go of control. I want to step into the unknown because you really have no idea. I had no context. I had studied nothing about plant medicine. I hadn't seen any documentaries, which it's nice that there are some documentaries out there right now describing this. There's more people talking about it. But for me, this is like 6 years ago, and it wasn't as spread out like it is now. So I went in blank. And for me, going through that experience, apart from it being just lovely, I was in nature under guidance, and it was a beautiful, magical experience. And the thing that it brought me the most was integrating all those years of meditation and personal experiences and challenges that I'd gone through physically and emotionally that sort of felt like they fell in place. And I was like, oh, it makes sense for me to have experienced that. And I felt more like, okay, this is what it is. And it made so much sense to me. And it really gave me a lot of clarity on what I've experienced, how I had experienced it, what purpose it served for me personally. And like everything fell into place. Like the plant medicine was helping me to integrate all those different experiences because it was a lot at the time. Like it just made sure that everything was sort of settling into my system. I feel like we need things to do that for a plant medicine journey. And now it served that purpose for me. And it did. The journey after that, it was similar. I got more insights, more information. Like it was already giving me more. It was like, okay, you're ready for a little bit more information to come to the surface to work with. So that was fun. And I even felt a few days before the themes that were going to come up, like intuitively, I felt like, hey, this is going to be a theme. And it really came to me. I was like, oh, hey, it's already doing something right, because it's a very intuitive thing. And then other journeys that I did that were with a lower dose, where I was more conscious, more in this state of consciousness as well. So you're sort of in between, where I just go into a meditative state more than fully surrendering and immersing into the journey, but being more on both sides, where you close your eyes, you're really in, you open your eyes, you're really here. And in those journeys, it's more like I'm interacting, like I'm asking questions to my own system, my own subconscious, and I get some answers. Like the door is more open to reflect and to journey inwards. It's like somebody's helping you out a little bit, and they have felt different, but especially those first ones, they were so integrating for me. So yeah, sometimes you do the journey, you have to integrate it. Sometimes you have the journey of life, and psychedelics help you to integrate it.
Yeah, that's true, actually. If I think about my own experiences, it also helped me to sort of make sense of my life. And what you said, it's almost like you get some extra pieces of the puzzle and you just put them in the right spots, and then you see the image and you're like, wait, of course, things make sense. Like, for example, in one experience that I had, I sort of went through my life from start to until that moment. And it was almost like I was connecting the dots. I was like, oh, this happened and then that happened. Oh yeah, of course, that makes sense. Because of that, I met this person and then went there. And it was like this beautiful sort of overview in a way.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, it does make sense where I'm at right now, because of all those dots looking back.
You can zoom out a little bit.
Yeah. And yeah, of course, what you said before as well, like every experience is different. Every journey is different for everyone. But I did relate to what you said about sort of having those pieces of the puzzle, because I feel like that has been for me as well in some of those journeys that I did, to really just make sense of life in general, but also specifically of what you have gone through or what you're just working on at the moment. And you're like, oh, okay, now this makes sense to me. Sometimes you're just doing things, and then afterwards you realize why, or like why you had certain behaviors, or why you met certain people, or whatever it might be. And it's almost like, yeah, what you said, first you have those things, and then that's the integration that you get, the realization of like, okay, this is not random in a way. This makes sense to me. And yeah, sometimes it can be the other way around. So it's
Absolutely. You can feel super confused after doing plant medicine. Where you're like, hey, everything that I thought was a certain way, I just got a different perspective, and now I don't know.
yeah,
Which is again the not knowing, which is a scary but beautiful place to be, because it's open. My meditation teacher, he always says, because we have a lot of times we say like, oh, I'm so confused, and he always says, congratulations, because it means that change is possible, right? It means that you're open. It means that you're not stuck in one vision. And yes, that comes with confusion, because your mind is like, wait, I thought it was this way, and now it's another way. And I love if you're going, especially when you're going through, and this is something that comes up when I also speak about my meditation teacher, because I think he does this so beautifully, where you go through really profound things, whether you're, I mean, if you're journeying through the world, 100%, right? We see amazing, beautiful scenery, but we also, come into situations that we're like, wow, this is really hard to see, challenging. And I think we have the same if we journey inwards, where you go to fears and emotional pain and trauma, and you feel that there's a lot of respect for it. And I do have a lot of respect for people doing, for example, plant medicine or meditation, where they are able and willing to dive into it, to say like, hey, I know there's things going on. I'm ready right now to actually have a look at them and to dive into them and to feel them, which is just a big thing. And I can't stress this enough, even also with the work that I do, that I have so much respect for people going into that experience, however hard it might be, that if you do this kind of work, and I love my meditation teacher, he's a very relaxed, joyful person. And he is always using humor. He's always, making jokes just for you to relax. And it's funny because I experience, and a lot of people have told me this, that they experience some kind of humor in the way you experience plant medicine. And I don't know if you have had the same. Like, there can be a joke in there, or you can look at a situation of your life where you were really stuck in the drama of it, and then it comes up in a journey, and you're just like, oh, this is so silly, like silly me, or like, oh, this is a waste of my energy. Why am I still focusing on this, And it just brings this sort of lightness to then process it and deal with it. And even people going through really traumatic things, in their inner world when they're doing a ceremony, that there's always this, it's hard to explain, but this essence of the plants that are giving this sense of it's okay. Even though it's really hard, it's really painful, even people crying for hours, it's nice to just be with them, or, hold their hand or whatever. But they always describe it as it being okay. Like, it was hard, but I felt something was carrying me. Like, I felt safe, or I felt peaceful. It's like you can look back at experiences that you've had, but with a sense of peace. And I think that in itself is already so healing, which I think is also one of the qualities of Tibetan meditation, which is the only one that I know, to dive in, but from a bird view, or to have a little bit more space from it, or going in with feeling peaceful and then going there. I just find it remarkable that in these plans, or whatever it is that you're using for the psychedelic experience, that it has that quality. For me, it's amazing.
Yeah. And I'm just wondering, because you mentioned, like, sometimes it can be really hard, and I've experienced that as well, that I'm like, oh my God, why did I decide to do this? Why did I put myself into this? But it's exactly what you said. Like, you feel that there are deeper things inside of you, and then to have the courage to look at them. That's also why I decided sometimes to do that. And then I was in it, and I was like, oh, this is heavy stuff. But then, like, eventually I also found my inner strength in those moments. And what you said, sort of whether you would call it an inner voice or, whatever it might be, something sort of underneath, like a layer that tells you or that makes you feel like you're okay, even though this is hard. But then I'm wondering, sometimes people talk about bad trips and like why some people feel like, oh, I don't want to get into this at all. It just feels risky or scary. What if I have a bad trip? How do you look at that from your experience? Like, does it, I'm just wondering myself, reflecting on this, does it even exist to have a bad trip, or is it more that you were in a challenging moment and you actually didn't really know how to deal with that, so then afterwards you sort of describe it or you label it as a bad trip? Because, for example, for me, I could say like some moments it felt like hell, that I was like, oh my god, this is really tough, I have to get through this. But I wouldn't describe it as a bad trip, because I feel like, no, it's what I needed at that moment. It really taught me something, and it actually helped me heal some really profound things that really had to come to the surface. But then maybe someone else would say, well, that was bad, right? So like, what is your sort of reflection on that?
Again, define bad, right? So in my experience, when you're doing this in a guided way, in a safe environment, I wouldn't say that I've ever had people have a bad trip or label it as such, but a challenging trip, for sure. You can have a challenging experience. I had a participant that went through really painful trauma in his life, and that came up during the ceremony. And he described it as going through hell and then ending up in heaven. He went through it and he actually got the light at the end of the tunnel, I'd say. But it was challenging. He was feeling it physically, he was feeling it emotionally, but we were there. I always try, let me speak for myself, I always try to not intervene if it's not necessary, because there is so much intelligence at work. I would say life intelligence. And your people can handle a lot. We carry it every day. And we are able to carry it when we are in that state as well. It's going to be nothing new, but it can be that you get into contact with things that were repressed, right? And then it can be overwhelming, which is why it's nice that somebody is there to hold your hand or to let you know that you're safe, that you're okay. And I think that makes the difference of a challenging trip not turning into a bad trip where you really feel unsafe and you go into panic. Because I think the emotional sort of severity of it is not necessarily panic. I think for bad trips, I would describe as people, for example, doing it for fun and in the middle of a city center or anything, and they're not prepared, they're not guided, the environment is very overstimulating, and then you go into like opening all these parts of yourself, right? And you're diving in, and it sort of crashes with the external world, with all the sounds and the sensations and everything that around you, and it's just so overwhelming for your system that you can't handle it. And then there's moments of panic, right? And still you get through it, and people have had bad trips and you move on, but it's not a nice memory. So from that perspective, I would always recommend doing it in a quiet, safe environment, preferably with somebody holding space for you, making sure that you have everything that you need. A part of my job as a facilitator is getting people to the bathroom and back, right? It's very basic. Getting a glass of water, writing something down that they're like, oh, I want to remember this. Can you write it down for me? Because it's really hard to write right now. Sometimes I've read somebody a poem. They're like, hey, I brought this poem. Can you read it to me? Because it means so much, right? And it's just nice to have that environment and not having to take the time for it, and to really being able to surrender. Because I think a lot of the bad trip experience is also when there's a lot of resistance. Like you cannot surrender to it, and then you get into this in-between state. Something is inviting you, but you can't really go there, and you're in like this in between, like this push and pull, which is just not a nice feeling to have. And then when you're not guided in, or you're being distracted, or you need to figure out traffic, I don't know how people can do this in the middle of a city, right? Because usually this is the ancient traditions in using these plant medicines. It's always, with under guidance of family or elders or shamans, people who know what they're doing, who can offer the environment that is optimal for these kinds of experience to really get the most out of it. I think that's the risky thing about a bad trip. And then again, if you don't feel ready, like you say, for example, if you're like, hey, I know some things might come up, because usually right? When you're thinking about doing something like this.
Yeah, you have certain intentions, right? Like,
yeah,
okay, this is something I would like to work on, or I'm curious about exploring something that maybe I feel like I cannot reach in a way.
Yes, so you already know why you're attracted to an experience like this. And I've talked to people, and I've done a lot also for the institute that I worked for, offering these kinds of retreats. I did a lot of the screening. So I was doing talks with people to see, hey, are you in a place in your life where this is a good idea, let's say? And you never know in advance, but there are some tells, And sometimes people know that they want to do something like this, and they also know, I'm not ready right now. And I always say, don't push yourself because you think it will help you. Do it when you feel like you want to, like you're ready, like you're curious. But if you're in a state of either desperation for something, it can have the opposite effect. Or it can be because it's opening up a lot within you. It's giving you a lot of information. So it also you have to have some ground where it can land, right? Where the seeds can go into the earth to grow new things. So it's nice to feel sort of steady in yourself. So I wish this experience for everybody if you feel that is right for you, which I think is the same for everybody. I mean, I've also just in traveling the world, to get back to that, because I do feel it's intertwined. Like, I love to travel and see new places and not know where I'll be next week or tomorrow. But for some people, this is not their way of life. And it really does not work. It's really dysregulating for them. And it makes them uncomfortable, and it actually makes them not being able to enjoy the country that they're visiting. When they're in the same place for the whole 3 weeks, they're in, I don't know, Indonesia, they're like, oh, I have my base, I know where I'll be. And in that relaxation, they can have a really fun experience and really enjoy their holiday or their travels and take everything in. So it depends on what works for you. And I mean, the same as I always had a no. And at some point, somebody asked me, and I was like, yes, now I feel it. And I think that's a way of also avoiding the bad trip, is where it just comes from like, hey, I feel ready. It's a spontaneous sort of pull that I'm feeling. And then to choose what kind of environment works for you, right? If you want to be in nature, in the middle of the jungle, or if you were like, I prefer to be in a bed, in a room with music, right? So you have to feel comfortable, feel safe, not being distracted by anything. And I think it really can help shape the experience, but also how it's being prepared, the people that are guiding you. Like, if we do group retreats, to see like, hey, do I want to be alone? Do I want to have a one-on-one? Or do I want to do a group retreat where I can connect to other people? And it's just very specific to who you are and where you are in your life at that moment. And we've also had people during the journey that I would come to them and they're like, no, I want him. They wanted a man next to them. I don't know, maybe because it gives more safety or whatever it is. And I love that the intuition becomes stronger when you take plant medicine. I think you can relate. Your intuition, like, I don't want a candle, I want this. It becomes very clear because you connect so deeply to yourself and your needs. So you know usually what's right for you. And I always do an intake with people like, hey, maybe you are ready for this kind of experience. Maybe not with me. And it really, I think, I keep inviting myself to be also humble in that, maybe they're ready, but I'm not the guide for them, right? Because you also have to feel comfortable with me. So sometimes I point them to a colleague, like, hey, I am hearing things in your story. I'm hearing things that you've gone through in life, the intentions that you have going into something like this. And I actually think that my colleague who has had similar experiences can help you better in this meet. And this is coming from a respect for these kinds of traditions, and also saying like, hey, this is out of my league. Sometimes people have more to maybe process. And I feel like, hey, I have some experience, but I feel like this is not the person that I should be guiding. And to again and again be true to that, even though maybe other factors are at work, right?
Yeah.
So bad trips, I think it always serves a purpose, but because otherwise you wouldn't be doing it. However, I think there's a lot that we can choose to eliminate that possibility.
Yeah. Yeah, I love how you explained that. And I think it's, yeah, if we compare it with traveling the world, as you said, yeah, you can also have a bad trip if you choose to travel in a way that doesn't match with what you like to do. As you said, like maybe you're not the person to be super spontaneous with, traveling around and feel like, oh, I don't know where I'm going to sleep tomorrow. And you have to know that about yourself, or you will find out. And then it's like, okay, I have to change it, right? Like, there are two different ways. Yeah. Perhaps you already know, and then you make other choices, or you don't know and you go for it. And then you realize this is not for me. And it's the same with going on those inner journeys, traveling inwards. Sometimes it's trying something out to realize like, okay, how do I even respond to this? But sometimes it's also already thinking about it beforehand, like, okay, what's the best environment for me? Just by realizing what you already know about yourself. Because if you really dive into it, you already know so much more about yourself than you sometimes realize. Just if you reflect on the way you live and you're like, oh, actually, I prefer small groups, or like you said, like a one-on-one, or I prefer to be in a safe space indoors because if I go into nature, I just feel more uncomfortable. And maybe someone else is like, no, nature is my safe place. I love it. I need the nature for this experience. So it's really, I think, important to also ask yourself those type of questions before you go, on a trip, like traveling somewhere, or on a trip inwards.
Yes.
To feel like you can create the circumstances that support you. And yeah, I think I loved what you shared about like how that can influence whether a trip is good or bad. And yeah, what you said, it's not even putting those labels on it, because then it's like, yeah, what's good or bad anyway? Because you can always take something out of it, right? Like even if you travel somewhere and it turns out not to be as you imagined, you can still
You have to adjust.
Yeah, you adjust, and you usually get stronger out of it because you learn something about yourself, even if it's what you don't want.
Which is also very good to know about
Exactly.
yourself.
Yeah. So I think it's good to, in a way, compare it with that as well.
Yes, and also to have guidance, right?
Yeah.
Because so, for example, I love like you are also helping people, move abroad, having this kind of way of traveling, and to give some tools and to give some hints and to offer some guidance. Like, we don't have to do it alone.
Exactly.
And I think that we do share a mindset where we are at all times looking for an opportunity to learn and to know like, hey, this might be happening for a reason. We can take a step back, evaluate, observe what is happening within us, and then work with it. I think that's also one of the gifts when you are learning like mental health tools, right? Whether it's meditation or breath work, like you have a way to say like, okay, something's happening. Let's look at it and let's see how to navigate, which I think is wonderful. But if you don't have that, or if you are in a situation where you're like, I can't reach that part of myself right now, like I'm already in the rabbit hole and I don't know how to get out, let's say, that it's nice to have guidance. If you move abroad or to somebody say like, hey, I've been on this path. it's good to go here and here and take care of these things. And here you can ask for your visa or anything that, somebody's showing you the way, or at least the map, and then you can navigate yourself. But it gives some, some hints and some things to hold on to. And I think it's the same for going on these inner journeys, and especially with plant medicine, that you have people who, they might have a different experience, but they do have experience, and they have a way of relating to what they're doing. And I think don't really live in, well, most of us, and probably most of the people listening to this podcast, don't live in a very community-based society, right? So back in the days, years and years and years ago, and still in native tribes and native communities, you get information about these things from generation to generation, right? This is ritual. And so you're already in this environment of these ceremonies being held. So even growing up, you have a way to relate to them. You have stories, you have people's experiences. So you're fully carried and supported in this kind of experience. And now people are approaching psychedelics with not knowing anything and having nothing to really relate to. And I think it's so important to still then have people who have experienced it before, can say like, hey, this is good to do. This is maybe not super handy. And also to know what contraindications are. Like, hey, if you have these physical symptoms or this mental health background, it might not be the best thing for you right now. Still, I think we ourselves, if we tune in, will know what is right for us. And sometimes we had to also be flexible towards people because they really felt like, hey, this is right, I need this. Where we're like, okay, we're going to trust your intuition over our ideas about something. And usually that's right. But to have some people with experience and say like, hey, if you're in this state right now, even though you feel like it might be a good thing, we would not recommend it because of this and this and this. And I think that's the beauty of guiding people and asking for help and being supported. And even though, for example, I had a client that wanted to do a one-on-one journey, and in the end, something physical came up, and we talked about it, and we really felt like, same for me, I wouldn't have done the journey with her. And she also felt like, this is not super handy right now. It doesn't feel right. But we had to go against everything because everything was arranged, everything was set up, paid for, all the logistics. And then you really have to be true in the moment and say like, and it doesn't feel right. And we did something else. We created a different kind of retreat. And she was like, wow, this is actually maybe what I needed more in the end. And she just felt like, hey, it was good to just be and be supported and spend some time still focused on myself and going inwards, but in a different way. So to be flexible, but to not carry everything alone. I think that's also what's rewarding in the work that I do. And also the way that even something like moving countries, that it's so nice to talk to somebody that has a little bit more information than you do. And I think for plant medicine, because we are not always in a society where the stories and the wisdom is being transferred from one generation to another, like these ancient wisdoms, all of this knowledge that is there when you are still in that community. So it's good to do a little bit of research, to talk to some people, and then see if it's the right thing for you. Because then it can be beautiful.
Definitely. And I think finding the right support, whether it's like a community or a guide or a therapist or a coach, whatever it is that you feel like you need in this moment, or, someone who can help you with whatever goal or intention you have. Yeah, to really feel like I don't have to figure this out alone. Because as you said, like we live in this society where it feels quite lonely sometimes, that you feel like it's quite individualistic. Oh my God.
Yeah. Yes, that.
Bonus points, whatever.
Yeah.
And to really feel like, no, I can find support. And I think that's also one of the reasons why I wanted to open up this space for these type of conversations as well, for people to realize, okay, there is information out there. There are possibilities for me to explore certain things, and it's not something I have to do on my own. And what you said, like also with the work that I do, like moving countries or traveling, that you actually don't have to figure everything out by yourself. And yeah, that's also especially with inner journeys, I think so important as well, because it can be a lonely process. I feel like in my experience, some moments I was also like, oh my God, there's so much happening that I'm learning about myself, that I feel like I'm really growing. I get to know myself on a deeper level. But sometimes it feels then that no one understands you, that you're sort of alone in your experience. And I think especially in those moments, it's so helpful when you have someone to reach out to, whether it's like a friend who can relate, or whether it's a guide or a mentor or a coach, whatever it might be. And yeah, I think especially also in those plant medicine journeys, that you are in a space that you feel like, okay, if I actually don't really know what's happening, or I just feel lonely in this journey in a way, that I can reach out to someone, even if it's just for someone to hold my hand, to give me a hug. I had those moments that I was just really struggling and in this journey in myself, like, crying. And then one of the facilitators also came to me and was just like, would you like a hug? And I'm also a person that doesn't ask for help that easily. So those moments mean a lot then, that you actually open yourself up to receive that support and feel like, yes, actually, I would like a hug, and
which is already sort of a healing aspect of itself.
Exactly.
And if it even has nothing to do with plant medicine, but
if that was the only moment sort of that I got out of it,
it would be worth it.
Yeah, exactly. Just to feel like, yes, there is so much love around me, because sometimes it can be easy to forget, especially, if you look at everything that's happening in the world, you can get into like depressing thoughts of like, oh my God, there's so much stuff happening. But actually, I think those type of moments, or feeling like you can connect with someone or be part of a community, helps you to realize, okay, there's also so much love in the world. At least that's how it feels for me. And that's, for example, now also why I wanted to start this new community in Sydney, to feel like, yes, I want to bring people together, to have shared experiences, and to exchange, to have beautiful moments together, because I feel like that's so important, especially when, you're like us, just exploring more things about yourself while you are, discovering the world. It's like, what is actually happening? There's so much to discover. Like, it never ends. It's like a journey and a journey and a journey,
Oh yes.
It's like it never ends. But then to have people around you who can hold you, or who can just listen to you, sometimes it's just
100%.
that you can just share, like, okay, this is what I'm going through, this is what I've been feeling, and just someone who sits with you and be like, okay, just tell me about it.
Yes. And how rich is that to have? Like, I feel I'm quite independent. I like to travel by myself. And I think with also the things that I've been doing the last years, where I'm like, let's step into the unknown, because I know it's good for me to get out of the daily things and my structured ways. And I'm like, let's break it open and let's go for it. But still, it does something with me. And to then have a talk with somebody, whether it's a friend or a stranger, but to share, and then somebody says something, that's right, and it just feels so warm, and also very much a part of who we are, and maybe an aspect that we sometimes forget. And I love that about communities. I mean, not just your neighborhood, but also communities that are set up. And I love that about plant medicine as well, and also in the way that I've been doing it and facilitating it, is that you you create an opportunity for people to have an experience in itself, but also the way it is being given, where you get to practice to ask for help. Because sometimes, people are like, yeah, I was really cold. And I'm like, just ask for a blanket. And they didn't, right? And it's these very small things, but we have become so conscious of like, oh, maybe I should or shouldn't. And in itself, it is sort of a transforming experience. And I joked about this with people, that where you're like, yeah, get me a glass of water. And I'm like, of course, that's why I'm here, right? But that people practice with asking what they need and having this feeling of not being alone in it. People going, one of my clients being so scared of doing plant medicine because she had been through a lot. She knew like things might come up, and oh dear, if this comes up. And she was so scared, and she reached out because she's like, I feel like I want to do it, but I really am not sure, because if this happens, I don't know if I can handle it, right? And we talked about it, and I really said, like, it's up to you if you want to. And if you feel like right now you have the space to deal with it, if it does come up. Because I cannot guarantee anything, because every journey is different. And honestly, anything is possible. So I'm not going to say like, oh, the likelihood is very little, So I told her, and eventually she said, like, I am ready. I want to try it. And I know that if something's going to be tough, you're going to be there. Right? I know that I won't be alone, and that together we can carry it. And then in the end, she didn't need me at all, right? But it's just knowing that there is somebody if you do need it, which I think is just a lovely, lovely thing. It's also why I think it's good to talk about things. So you give yourself permission to also talk about it and to ask questions and to know like, hey, it's not just me, right? And it's, I think it's such a beautiful part of life. And is why I love talking to you as well, sharing and learning new things. I think it speaks to the core of who we are, a very beautiful aspect of life that sometimes we lose track of. And especially me, like I have to say, like I'm so grateful that I have people around me that call me out on it, where you're like, Faye, you're sort of crawling into your corner, because it's difficult what you're dealing with right now, and you're trying to figure it out. And sometimes you need some air coming in, a new perspective. And I think that's also what's beautiful about plant medicine. You get a new perspective and you feel like something is scaring you, whether that is the plant or your guide or life itself, that we can rest, that we can really rest in a different way, and without any expectations, without any need to fix anything, but just to be with exactly what is everything that's going on, whether it's comfortable or uncomfortable. And it's nice to have people around you.
Definitely.
When you go into that.
Yeah. And it's also about what you said, feeling like you have permission.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes just hearing about other people's experiences or seeing someone travel somewhere or travel inwards in a certain way gives you permission to also explore new things. Because sometimes we just don't know until we see someone else doing something or sharing something. And then we're like, oh, wow, I didn't even know this was possible. And then sometimes that opens up a new door for you, that you feel like, oh, wow, maybe I could try this. Or maybe it just changes your perspective, that you're like, oh, I always thought that life was just like this. I often had that when I was traveling, when I was younger, when I would travel also on my own to new places, and I would see people living in a different way. And I would be like, oh, wow, this is also a way,
Yeah.
Because when you just grow up with a certain lifestyle, or that you're like, okay, this is how you live your life. For example, when I moved to Barcelona when I was 20, like in Spain, you have the siesta, for example. And I came from a culture where it's just like, you work.
You just go.
Just go. And then suddenly all the shops were closed in the afternoon. And I was like, what's happening? And people were taking the time for lunch. And I was like, okay, this is also a way to live your life. And it sounds so simple, but it was just like an eye-opening thing for me to realize there's not just one way to live your life. And I think that's what travel always teaches me. But it's also what plant medicine has taught me, because it literally opened up new windows or doors in my mind that I was like, okay, life as I know it is not just how life can be. There are different ways to live life or to
go
view
beyond
life. Yeah, and to literally go beyond.
To go beyond what you think is true or what you think is normal, if that even exists, and to expand your horizon, literally, and in all the ways that you can. And I think it's also why we do what we do, is because when you have had that experience, you know, like, oh, there is more to, you know, it feels nice to expand your perspective, to expand your mind, and that it's such a beautiful thing of also being helped by people, being surprised by people, seeing different ways. And I think it automatically connects you more. It connects you more to yourself, but also to the world around you. Because if you don't see it, you don't know it, you don't talk to people from a different culture, how do you relate? It's so hard because you only relate to an idea of something, which I think is so beautiful about travel, whether in or outwards, is you discover new things and it makes you able to relate differently. And it has a way of connecting. Whether you do a meditation and you realize that there is a fear or an aspect of yourself that you weren't familiar with, you automatically connect to it, and it gets, you know, you create a place for it, and it's integrated and embraced most of the time. Sometimes not. It takes a while. But I think it's also so beautiful for maybe, you know, to expand it to the world and to the people around us and the effect that we have on people around us, is that if you go into different experiences and you connect in a different way, it also makes you care more and it makes you consider more things. And I think being, for example, lost in the middle of Thailand and people having no idea who I am, what I'm doing in that little village, and saying like, who is this person? And me being very scared, and somebody stepping up and saying like, okay, don't speak any English, but we'll get there. And they found a way to, like, they called an aunt, like, we'll make sure that you get there, and eventually brought me to the place that I was looking for and I had no possibility of finding by myself. And having that kind of experience, it lands in you and it shapes who you are, and it makes me want to do that for other people. It makes me want to, because it's so precious to me, that I'm like, how beautiful if you can share this, if you can create that space for other people. If you've gone through like deep healing experiences and you know how tough it can be and how beautiful it can be, you know, that you want to share that. You want to create that opportunity for other people. You want to share the love, I'd say, you know. It's really very cliche, but it's true. And how beautiful that something that helps you is also helping everybody else.
Yeah.
I mean, I get goosebumps.
Yeah, it's beautifully said. And it's like, yeah, it sounds so cliche, spread the love, but it's also definitely how I experience it, because it's what you said. Sometimes you have those experiences when you're traveling. And I even had it, you know, these days being in Sydney, and I know the city already very well, but there's of course still places I don't know. And sometimes I'm just on Google Maps on my phone, just looking like, where do I need to go? And I had like so many times that someone just stopped and asked, oh, do you need help? Like, do you need some directions? And like those little acts of kindness just really make your day. And it's so nice that people pay attention to you and not just, you know, walk past you because they're busy with their life and go somewhere, but that there are people in the world that notice like, hey, she's looking for directions. Maybe I can help her out. And I feel like I've definitely experienced those things more while I'm traveling. And it also has shaped me as a person to do that for other people as well. Now, sometimes when I see someone maybe just sitting on a bench and it feels like, oh, you just feel like maybe someone is going through something, just to actually ask, hey, are you okay? It's just those little things, and maybe they're just having a moment, they don't need any help, but just to spread that love, basically, to care for each other, even though you don't know that person. And I think that's something that, yeah, traveling inwards also really helped me with finding that place within myself, that I think, yeah, it opens up your heart in a way even more, because okay, if I'm going through this stuff, I know everyone is going through their own stuff, and let's just be a kind person, because even when someone else is, for example, rude, or yeah, like someone can have a bad day, and I always try to react in a way that I'm like, okay, I don't actually know what this person is going through. It doesn't justify the behavior, maybe, but there's something else underneath, and like sort of to approach it from kindness in that way. I think sometimes those things can really make a difference. Not just how we live our lives, like on our own, but how we, yeah, like spread it towards other people.
Yeah, how we create this one big experience, and it's all these little interactions.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you're in a place where you have the ability to give, sometimes that's not the case, right? You need it for you. But if you do, then yeah, let it come out. And even though somebody on that bench is okay, it has an effect that somebody is willing to take a minute of their day and to check, like, hey, you good?
Yeah.
Right? And sometimes it goes into a really fun conversation or anything. And sometimes it can save somebody.
Yeah.
Right? So why not?
Yeah, definitely.
And I think, if you have this, like, hey, let's just see and allow yourself to be surprised. Because if you open yourself to that kind of experience, anything can happen. I think it also connects you to, because I talk about, in plant medicine, that you connect to this sort of magical thing. And I don't think it's just in that state of consciousness. I think even the interactions, like small things with people, or even, being in nature and having a moment because a bird flies by, I realized, and I think this happened the first time I did plant medicine, because I was in nature, and I went into it and I felt like, wow, this is so magical. And then I sort of came out of it, and I was landing, and I was connecting again to everything around me and my surroundings and the people around me, going back into daily life. And I had this beautiful realization, like, wow, it's just as magical if you pay attention. And if you have space to experience it. And even though, it's not all like rainbows and butterflies, right?
Yeah.
There's real life things, but it is, I think, in the essence of life, there's the same kind of magic. And I think plant medicine just connects you to it more.
Yeah, I feel like in my experiences, it also really helped me to connect more to nature and to even appreciate it more. And now I'm one of those people sometimes. I had it like 2 weeks ago. I went on this really nice walk through a park, and I was watching the sunset. And then I was on my way back, and there was this really beautiful, big, old tree. And I just felt the need to give it a hug. And I was like, oh my God, am I one of those people?
Did I become a tree hugger?
And then I was like, where's this judgment even coming from? Because that's a whole other conversation, like certain conditioning that you have, or that you're like, oh, no, I cannot do this. This is weird. But I was like, no, it just felt so nice to connect with nature, literally. And it just calmed my nervous system down. I felt it like right away. I was like, whoa.
There's a reason you feel like doing it.
Yeah, it's like your body telling you, hey, touch the tree or lay in the grass, or some people. And I also have that, like, put my feet in the sand, or in the ocean. Like,
So
it just
good.
calms me down right away. And that's just like how nature in itself is already healing. Like those elements, when you listen to your body and you actually intentionally do those things.
You don't actually need to take anything.
Exactly.
It helps, but you don't need it. You can also just be there and have the same kind of experience. And how free to just do it when you feel like doing it and not listening to those.
Yeah, and feel like, okay, maybe if someone sees me, they think I'm a weirdo, but
Be a little weird. Live a little.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, what is normal anyway? You know?
Yeah. And I think if you focus on what you love, those things fall away.
Yeah.
More.
And it's also, it's who we are as people. Like, we are part of this world, and connecting with nature is actually a natural thing, whether it's through plant medicine or hugging a tree or swimming in the ocean,
Yeah.
Whatever you do, we are part of this, just like other animals spend time in nature as a natural environment. And I think sometimes, especially when we live in cities, we get so detached from it. Yeah, I feel like actually, at least in my experience, plant medicine helped me to also realize how much we are connected to nature and to planet Earth, and to feel like, yes, we're part of this. We're not separate from it. We're not, sometimes it feels like, oh, as human beings, we rule the world or whatever because we build everything, and, but no, like, we're part of it.
I mean, even the way we say it, right? We are going into nature, like we're separate from it.
Yeah, exactly.
It feels, it's just weird.
Yeah. And I also think I experience that a lot when I'm traveling and I go to places, for example, like this majestic waterfall, or those type of moments in nature always make me humble, because they remind me that I'm part of it and that I'm just this tiny person.
Very tiny, yeah.
I think sometimes those type of moments really sort of put you back in your place in a way.
Yes, and that place, I think, is actually the most natural and lovely thing to feel. Because if we have to be all these things that we think that we are, what a pressure, right? And if we see like, hey, compared to this waterfall, I'm actually not, I don't need to really be that powerful, right? I can just be here and relax. And the ant is just as important, as a matter of speak. And it's just, I think we can take a lot of pressure off ourselves if we just feel like we are part of the whole. Yeah. And we need to be reminded.
Yeah.
Either by people or nature or plant medicine, which is a beautiful way to do that and to really feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's remind ourselves.
Yeah.
And each other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, if you're listening to this, maybe this is a reminder for you as well to just, maybe it's something small to walk out of your house a little bit more and to go in nature, like, or just to look at a bird and realize, just to pay more attention to your surroundings. Sometimes it's just those tiny things already in daily life that can make a big difference.
Take a deep breath, feel your feet on the earth.
Yeah.
Feel the sun on your skin. It's way more powerful than we might think.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's a beautiful way to actually close this conversation for now. We can talk about this for many more hours, but maybe you just have to come back another time.
Yes, I will. I would love to.
Whether it's in person or perhaps because you're traveling around, we will have an online call. We will figure that out. But thank you so much for sharing, for opening up for creating this space together, and to just also be open to even have this conversation, to share it with other people. And I think it's so important, and I feel like the audience can really get so much out of this, even if it's to reflect on, is this something I would like to explore or not at all? Or there's so many layers to this, and I think it's just important to have these type of conversations to know what's possible. Figure out for yourself what resonates and what doesn't.
You'll feel it.
Yeah.
You'll feel it. And you can always reach out and ask. It was a joy talking about this in such an open way. So thank you for that, because it's really such a wonderful way to address this and to share.
Yeah, thank you as well. And if you have any questions about anything we spoke about today, feel free to reach out. I will also put your contact in the show notes. Like, if anyone wants to know about the things you do, your guidance, or, just if you have any questions about anything we spoke about, you can reach out to me or to Faye.
I'm always happy to share.
Yeah, it's what we said. It's good to have these type of conversations and to just know that you don't have to figure things out alone. So thank you so much for listening, and don't forget to subscribe to my podcast, to Beyonder, so that you stay up to date on future episodes. And I will see you again next time. And for now, wish you a beautiful rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.